Are you ready for 2025? It just wouldn't be right to go into a new year without reflecting and reviewing on the year that you've just been through. And that's what we're going to do today because I have a very important message for you. It was something that came through for me this year, and I'm ready to share it. Hey, everybody, it is Penny, and this is probably going to be a little bit longer episode. I may even break it up into two shorter episodes for you. So, the title of this podcast, Your Greatest Teacher, is one of the most ego rattling lessons or messages, rememberings that I received this year. And it is one that when you get it, it will surely change your life. By far, when people listen to the podcast, the most popular episodes are those where we dive into spirituality, manifestation, abundance, or some aspect of that. And if you've been to some of my master classes, we focus on that. For example, the quantum identity matrix masterclass from earlier this year was, I did very, very little promotion of that masterclass, and it was very popular. There were profound shifts that were had during that masterclass. Some of them so profound, it actually shocked and surprised me. I'm always amazed at what can occur in a group setting when we approach something in the right frequency and we're ready to receive it. Really big things can happen. But before I get too far down that road and into the rabbit hole that we're going to go into today, I just want to say that any of the master classes or resources that I mentioned today can be found on the website at pennychiasson.com/resources. There's a page that just lists everything from the quick drop theta hypnosis to the hypnosis trainings and everything in between. So just know that you can go there. I'm a very spiritual person. I like to say woo woo, but I'm really not woo woo. To me, the woo woo sector of things generally tend to be looked at as putting something out into the universe, sending out a wish, if you will, and then sitting back and just waiting for it to happen. I see that a lot, and I've seen it a lot in clients I worked with several years ago when money mindset blocks tended to be a lot of the hypnosis work that I did with people. And it evolved out of that. But law of assumption, law of attraction, manifestation, law of cause and effect, law of karma, law of polarity, these things are very real. And there's an entire quantum physics aspect to it as well. But the things that we're talking about there, they work in tandem and in balance with one another, which is basically where the quantum identity matrix masterclass came from, because we see people who manifest and create things very quickly in their lives, and it just looks so amazing. But there's more to it than just setting that intention and sitting back and waiting for it to happen. We get to not only be an active participant in that co-creation, but we get to be the person who is ready to not only receive it, but to hold it. 2024 has been a year of massive deconstruction for me. 2023 was a lesson in this is what you think you want. This is what you think you want. So go for it. And being shown that that wasn't the right path. We can manifest or draw in things that aren't necessarily in alignment. And we will be presented with opportunities and challenges to make different choices that bring us back into alignment, which is what happened at the end, the last quarter of 2023. But I still have this intention that's out there. Our desired future doesn't necessarily manifest instantly. Instant manifestations do occur. They don't always have staying power depending on what they are. And if we're in a position to hold that manifestation, that means the inner work, the subconscious work, our beliefs, our business structures, our home structures, our family structures, relationships, you name it, especially if you're an entrepreneur. In 2023, I shared this, I think in January, I set an intention and boy, did it happen. And it stretched my nervous system to the point that I snapped back, and I snapped back hard because there was some deeper work that I didn't even realize needed to be done, which takes me to something that people will often say, and that is that the universe tests you. The universe does not test you. There's no force out there going, well, let's see how you like this. No, it is our ego that is being stretched by what it is that we're calling in. And the choices that we make, the decisions, the actions we take, the beliefs we choose to hold, the people we choose to surround ourselves with, these things influence how we show up in life. And our choices are either going to be in alignment or not. And sometimes we declare that we want something in our lives, but we think we can get there by being who we already are. And there's this concept. You can't get to point B. You can't have a future at point B by being the person who has the present at point A. You have to see the world and make decisions as if you're already at point B. And that's where we see what people call testing come up. We will see it come up in those moments where we're stretching to be this person and we're being faced with the things that are already in our present. And that's an opportunity to shift a belief, take a different action, or to let go of or move away from things that are going to keep us from that goal. I'm going to say that again. It's not a test. As the things you desire, as you start acting as if the person who already has what you want, you are going to notice the things in your life that do not support that. And if you attempt to hold on to what is and attempt to be who you want to be, to do what you want to do and have what you want to have in the future, if you try to hold those two things at the same time, it's not going to work if they're not in alignment with one another. So that's where we get faced with the beliefs, the perceptions, what we make things mean. You know, my family doesn't get it that I want to, I don't know, go to Hollywood and be a movie star. They don't get it. Well, are you going to continue to people please them and give in to what other people tell you happiness looks like? Or are you going to say, you know what, I know you don't like it, but this is what I have to do, and go do it anyway? And they may have a lot of resistance. They may get very upset. They may badger you. They may pester you. That is not the universe testing you. That is you learning to bring your mind, your beliefs, your boundaries, and your trust in yourself in alignment with what you actually want. So, keeping that in mind, at the end of 2023, I just, on a whim, decided to bring hypnosis trainings back onto the calendar for 2024. 2023 was a pause year. I decided to bring them back for 2024 because several people reached out and asked about it. And it was an excellent move. I love teaching. I love setting people up to go out and create change. The world needs a lot more of us that are going out and helping people deconstruct these beliefs, these patterns, the blocks, the habits, whatever you want to call it. Maybe they want to bring in more health, more wealth. There's so much room for many, many more people to do that. But at the same time, I was receiving that message. I was receiving messages to simplify, strip it out, strip it down, simplify, easy, easy, easy. Then my mother got a formal diagnosis of cancer. I'm an only child. So I got to be a part of helping her navigate the journey in the first half of the year. I was out of my business half of the first half of the year. And at one point, for many, many days out of a month, 8 days straight. And then in the following couple of weeks, I was only kind of half in for 9 days. I have a project manager, but I don't have a VA. I don't have someone who answers all my emails because I had chosen to take on fewer one-on-one clients. I needed to be there with my mother, but I also needed to be able to show up 100% for my clients. So I couldn't take the regular load of clients and be in integrity with the level of work that I like to do with clients, and without having to do a lot of rescheduling, because when you're helping a family member navigate a journey like that, you don't know what will happen. We don't have control, right? We don't have control, but we get to choose. We get to choose how to show up in that moment. And I chose to not put myself in a position to feel like I had to do everything. Along the way, as we are setting things up, stripping things down, making sure things connect well on the back end of the business tech, I have this vision of where I want to go. And I did not get there this year, but I am totally okay with it. And I'm going to tell you why. If I had achieved what I wanted to achieve this year, my business would have broken under the weight of it. Every step of the way where there was a challenge, whether it was tech, whether it was content creation, looking at my schedule, too much on the schedule, looking at how things fit together and saying, it's too many pieces, strip away more, strip away more. Every step of the way, that in moments it has felt hard because business is not easy. Neither is life. So if you don't have a business, but you have a career, or maybe you're retired and you're trying to do other things and you have grandkids and all the things going on, it still applies. every step of the way was me being shown, correct this, tweak that, adjust this, eliminate that. This doesn't belong anymore. Bring this piece in. It's been a year of massive growth, personally and systems wise in the business. There have been times where I've had my head in my hands and I've cried. There have been moments where it felt too overwhelming. There have been things that felt like a weight on me that I knew I had to work through. However, those days were minuscule. They are small compared to the beauty, the blessings, and the lessons of 2024. I have learned so much about myself. I have learned so much about my mother. Our relationship has grown stronger. I have met people in my business who make a difference. I've had inspirations, and change has been a big word the last few years. It's been a very big word. Change, change, change. So much change. At some point, you're like, okay, when can I get a rest? Probably the most life-changing thing that has happened this year. And I'm going to get there in a moment. Your greatest teacher. I'm going to get there in a moment. The most profound thing that happened for me this year is that I was diagnosed as having ADHD. I've done so much inner work. I have done so much mindset work. I have a process for uncovering my blind spots. And if I'm still bumping a wall, I know who I can have a conversation with and verbally process with them and uncover the blind spots to address. Plus, working with my shaman, going into dream time, I will ask my subconscious mind, show me what I'm missing here, because clearly there's something I should be doing or should not be doing that is getting in my way. Bring me the lesson, open the door, let me walk through it. I am ready to walk through that door. That is faith. That is trust in yourself. That is letting go of control to do that. But what I discovered was that I had done all of that mindset work. I had done all of those things. And I continued to hit moments in my life, not just my business, but it was severely impacting my business, but in my life where I would hit shutdown. And I've taken care to learn to not overcommit. And I could have a to-do list that was 3 items long, and my mind would shut down. And I got so frustrated to the point where I was like, if this doesn't get fixed, then this has all been for nothing. And I got that ADHD diagnosis. And I can tell you, I call it a diagnosis. I think that neurodivergence is a creative spiritual person. Now, there are people who are going to get pissed when I say that. Everything can be spiritual thing. Everything is spiritual, number one. Number two, can you have ADHD and have trauma superimposed on that? Absolutely. But neurodivergence is a way of operating that drives us to be creative and seek out new solutions and to not be in a box, which is necessary for it's necessary for survival. So I love that aspect of it, but I had to get control of these peaks and valleys. Once I did that and I could have the focus, I have literally accomplished more in my business in 4 months than the 2.5 to 3 years prior. And I'm not talking about financial. I'm talking about what makes the thing move and being able to focus. Remember, I talked about stripping all these things out and building things back. I teamed up with my OBM. We did this together. I didn't hire the stuff out. I'm pretty darn good tech-wise. Don't ask me to code, but I'm pretty darn good tech-wise, and I like things simple and complicated. So we rolled up our sleeves, and I felt pulled. I wasn't pushing. That's the other thing. Pushing is not a good energy to be in, but I felt pulled, and we've we've done a lot. We have created a lot. And sometimes you hold your breath and you're like, when's it coming? And we really, when we're working to manifest, we're setting our intention. We really do not want to say that. When's it coming? I'm waiting, because what we're doing is we're putting out the energy. We're putting out this energy that it's not here yet. So we manifest more of it's not here yet. So every time I would catch myself doing that, I would immediately have to reframe my thoughts. So if you manifest or you attempt to manifest and it's not happening, keep that in mind. The more you think about it not being there, the more you're manifesting it not being there, because you are where your attention is. And this goes back to quantum physics. It goes back to quantum physics. And if you keep looking for something to be there long enough and you keep staring and seeing that it's not, you actually halt your manifestation. The moment you realize that you're looking and it's not here yet, you have to reset that intention. You have to put it back in motion, because you freeze it in that moment. The universe is always expanding, but if you observe a particle in quantum physics, if you observe a set of circumstances often enough, that momentum is lost. It's still moving, but it's really not moving when you think of how we consider time as humans in terms of moving. With the last few weeks, and I've known this for months, I've known it in my heart, 1000%, it's all okay. 1000%, everything I've asked for is already here. Just the little things are clicking into place so that there it is. It comes into being. The last couple of weeks, I've had powerful, powerful, powerful messages. Symbolism, sacred geometry, guidance, nudges. They've all been coming into play. And I'm very aware of not putting meaning or becoming attached to the symbols. It's like, oh, great, confirmation. Thank you. And as a matter of fact, right now my forehead's itching right here. This one of my guides coming through. It's confirmation. Confirmation, confirmation, confirmation. But don't attach meaning to it, like, oh, it's going to happen next week, or it's going to happen tomorrow, or it's going to happen in 5 minutes. It will happen when it happens. It will happen as soon as it's supposed to happen. It will happen as soon as you want it, or something better. If your soul knows that something different is better, that's when it will come about. Last week, I followed one of my nudges, and I pulled out a book I had started reading, but hadn't picked it up in a little while. I just had a nudge, read this book tonight. And I read a handful of pages. And it was such a profound lesson. We go through life and we hear things, and we feel like we know what it means. And the most wisest person, the most evolved person, the most enlightened person knows that they know nothing. Now, I will say sometimes I know nothing. I say I know nothing, but there's a part of my ego that still wants to hold on to the idea that it knows something. I mean, when you really reach that point where life is nothing but pure existence, there's zero attachment, there's no interpretation. It's pure presence and being without all the chatter of the world. I'll let you know when I get there. I'll let you know when I get there. But I, I have a high degree of awareness. However, when I think about all the things that I don't know, that high degree of awareness really doesn't amount to anything. It doesn't amount to anything. But I was reading this book, and I'm probably going to pronounce the name wrong. It's Carlos Castaneda, Journey to Ixtlan, Ixtlan. And in just a moment, I'm going to read you a piece of this book. But we go through life and we hear things like live each moment as if it's your last. Live like you don't have tomorrow. And most people equate that to doing the things that are important to you, spending time with your loved ones, being happy. Don't worry about tomorrow. I've even had a teacher, Jim Fortin, and I'll put a link in the show notes to some of his stuff. So if you want to explore his stuff, that you can. He said, death is your greatest teacher. Death is your greatest teacher. And that was a lesson that he learned from Don Javier, who is his brother-in-law and his shaman, who is also my shaman. And I apprentice with him. Of course, Jim's been apprenticing with him for 25 years. For me, it's only been 3, almost 4. But death is your greatest teacher. And when I had my personal call with Don Javier, when I first started working with him, he shared a story with me, which is not mine to share. But again, it was about death. Now, if you're new to the podcast, you can go back to episode 155, where I talk about my life in 2017 and how I ended up being where I am now. And in 2017, I had a mental, emotional, and spiritual crisis. I was way out of alignment. And then one day, in the snap of a finger, a single conversation blew open the floodgates of emotion. And I very quickly, within like 2.5 hours, found that I had spiraled with suicidal thoughts into suicidal ideation to having a plan, but at the same time, inside of myself, recognizing this is not what I want. I want to live. I was at battle and at war with myself. I got the help that I needed. And one of the people that, was helping me through that, she goes, you realize you are under spiritual attack, right? And I don't look at it as spiritual attack. I was under the attack of my ego. My spirit knew what it wanted. I was under the attack of my ego. But when I reflect back on that moment, and when I reflect back that in 2020, I was laying in a hospital in respiratory failure, that just a single insult, I could have ended up dying. That's how sick I was. I wasn't even afraid of dying in 2020. I didn't want to suffer. I wasn't afraid of dying. And it wasn't until about 3 months ago, I was having a conversation with someone at the hypnosis symposium, and we were chatting about things as they had unfolded. And she shared a story with me. And the punchline, if you will, of the story was, you've already lived the hardest day of your life. The day that I fought for my life that day, that's the hardest day of my life. That is the hardest day I will ever live. That is the hardest day I will ever live. So when you think about live each day as if it's your last and death is your greatest teacher, you're like, yeah, like, wow, that really puts a lot of things into perspective. And there was a huge healing that came out of that conversation. But last week, I felt pulled to read the book. The book is about the lessons of Don Juan. Don Juan was Don Javier's benefactor. It's who Don Javier apprenticed with to learn the ways of the shaman, how to walk in both worlds. Carlos Castaneda interviewed Don Javier, and Don Javier told him the stories, and then Carlos put the books together. The book is almost presented as if it was Carlos, but it was Don Javier. So Don Juan is teaching Don Javier how to hunt. And they're out in the desert. They build a trap to catch a rabbit. And I'm going to give you a trigger warning, okay? I'm not going to be graphic, but a trigger warning. In the end, the bunny does not make it, okay? So if this is going to bother you, just, fast forward just a few minutes and catch the end. But they build the trap, and he ends up catching a rabbit. So then Don Juan tells Don Javier to kill the rabbit, and he can't. He's emotionally attached to it. He can't hurt it. And there's a whole conversation that goes back and forth where Don Juan shares with him that the rabbit's guides, its spirit, led him into the trap because it was his time. It was his time. And I'm just going to read to you a couple of different pieces from this dialogue, and then I'm going to share with you what was absolutely and utterly just on another level of a lesson. So Don Juan is teaching Don Javier about being a hunter, and Don Juan starts pushing Don Javier's buttons, and it's frustrating to Don Javier, and he's talking about how he needs to change. And Don Javier's like, well, what if I don't want to change? And what Don Juan is doing is he is bringing to the surface that when we are in a pattern, when we get into autopilot and we attach to those things, that we're not open. And so Don Javier's like, well, what if I don't want to change? What if I don't want to change? And so this dialogue took place back and forth. This is what Don Juan says. You don't have time for this display, you fool, he said in a severe tone. This, whatever you're doing now, may be your last act on earth. It may very well be your last battle. There is no power which can guarantee that you are going to live one more minute. I know that. No, you don't. If you knew that, you would be a hunter. If this were your last battle on earth, I would say that you are an idiot, he said calmly. You are wasting your last act in some stupid mood. I agree, Don Juan, but don't just agree with me, he snapped. You must, instead of agreeing so easily, act upon it. Take the challenge and change. Just like that. That's right. The change I'm talking about never takes place in degrees. It happens suddenly, and you are not preparing yourself for that sudden act that will bring total change. Don Juan says, you don't have time, my friend. That is the misfortune of human beings. None of us have sufficient time, and your continuity has no meaning in this mysterious and awesome world. Your continuity only makes you timid. Your acts cannot possibly have the flair, the power, the compelling force of the acts performed by a man who knows that he is fighting his last battle on earth. In other words, your continuity does not make you happy or powerful, but we are all going to die. As they continue, as Don Javier is asking, like, what's the point? What am I supposed to do then? Use it. Focus your attention on the link between you and your death without remorse or sadness or worrying. Focus your attention on the fact that you don't have time, and let your acts flow accordingly. Let each of your acts be your last battle on earth. Only under those conditions will your acts have their rightful power. Otherwise, they will be, for as long as you live, the acts of a timid man. As Don Juan continues the conversation with Don Javier, he's telling him to kill the rabbit. And he says, the hell with it. I won't kill anything. I can't do it. So Don Javier begins to stomp the trap that he had built in an effort to break the trap and set the rabbit free. And in the process, killed the rabbit. What will be, will be. But whether or not we choose to be that boldest part of ourselves, whether or not we choose to do what we're truly passionate about, what we truly love, what we're truly here to do, is another story. By the time this goes to publish tonight, I might not be here. I might not be here. May not be here tomorrow or the next day. But what dropped through with that lesson, and I'm leaving a lot of context out in that, you can get the book if you're on the video. I'm showing the book. It's the green book. We can choose to do what we're here to do, or we can pussyfoot around it. And that lesson reinforced, took to another level, revealed another facet, side, perspective, whatever you want to call it, of messages that have been coming through about 24 going into 25. This is the time for all of us, each choice in each moment, to make the choice that lets us show up as the most powerful and empowered version of ourselves, so that what we're doing carries the weight and the power of who and what we are. And letting each choice that we make be a choice that would serve us well, if in that moment we are living our life in a way that if that act is our last battle, we can say, honestly, not, denial and delusion, we can honestly say, I did what I was here to do today. Everyone's going to receive that on a different level. I know that it has taken me 3.5 years, and I'm not going to get into what's going on in my life, because I got that. I got it. I knew it. I understood it at a level. There are levels to knowing and remembering lessons that we've learned before. And when it comes to making each choice and living each day as if that day is your last day on earth and it is your last battle, it means you get to let go of human expectations. You get to not allow yourself to be ruled by human emotion. You get to let go of attachments to things like material possessions, money, relationships. Not that we want to be in isolation, but to surround yourself with people in support that help you or that understand you on this path where each choice that you make could be your last battle. True happiness comes when we are living in alignment with what our soul is guiding us, that curiosity, the joy, the peace that comes. Does that mean life is a bed of roses? Absolutely not. There will always be lessons. But when I look back over 2024 and 2023, I think 2023 was worse because I had some stuff to work through in 2023, I'm telling you. But in 2024, as many challenges as there have been, and as many things that have happened, that I could look at them and I could consider them setbacks, I can honestly say each and every one of them was a blessing and a stepping stone to where I am now. Am I proud of every moment in 2024? No, I'm not. Our humanness comes out. This isn't about perfection. It's about being. Perfection is a human thing. And the other thing is our ego will always be there. We don't have to fight the ego. When we learn to dance with our ego and understand this is a part of our human experience, but to not let the ego and the emotions and the fear drive who we are, our lives radically change. We're in a huge age of transformation right now. People say timeline shifts, parallel realities. I'll let you go with that wherever you feel. I'm not going to put my thoughts into your head. This is for you to discern for yourself. But consciousness is elevating. Earth is expanding. You can move with that expansion and step into your beingness and let death be your greatest teacher. You're going to stay where you are. I mean, that's what free will and choice is. So if we take each moment, if we were presented with a choice and we just checked in with our soul and said, what would death say about this? How would I feel if I died in 5 minutes? Would I be happy with this decision? Or would I not? Does it serve my purpose? Does it serve me being in my heart? Does it serve me being a person that just through the living of my life and being who I am, I'm elevating people around me, that I'm helping them to see something meaningful and worthy and loving in themselves? Am I showing them that life is filled with possibility? That their life isn't beholden to anyone or anything, not a government, not a person, not a rule, not a regulation, not a disease, not an addiction. You're not beholden to anything. But to believe you are, that's the prison that we as humans can create in our minds all the time. I don't know about you, but I made a decision on Thursday about being in partnership with my greatest teacher? Will you allow death to be your greatest teacher? And what will that change for you in your life? And I'm going to tell you, be careful what you set your intention for. Be careful what you say you want. Because if you make that big, huge stretch intention, you're probably going to go through your own journey of deconstruction to make way for what it is that you say that you want in 2025. Have a great week.